Hey YouTube, and welcome to my channel. It's Leah Lauder, Mega Church Cult Survivor. I spent 18 years in a Mega Church Cult and now I expose them. So welcome back to What is Mystical Manipulation? No, it's not Mystical Manipulation. Welcome back to What is Spiritual Psychosis Part 3. And if you haven't seen part 1 to 2, go and watch it. Yeah, it's on my channel. So I'm actually on live on Instagram as we speak, and I'm going to go live on, I'm live on TikTok. I'm going to go live on Instagram now as well. Hey Insta, welcome to my live and part 3 of What is Spiritual Psychosis. Leah Lauder, Mega Church Cult Survivor in the car. And we have been going through some really, really deep, theoretical concepts that are helping us to deconstruct and deprogram our mind, man. So please go and watch part 1 to 3. Thank you, Queen Nance, for the gifts. As I am on TikTok, you will hear me engaging with TikTok survivors and Instagram survivors. I've been talking about what is spiritual psychosis, looking at things like what is it called? Temporal lobe epilepsy, which they have coined and labeled as manifestation. So when people are needing like actual medical treatment, or they're needing medical intervention, they are trying to pray over people and they are putting people's lives at risk, okay? Because some people actually have epilepsy. So how do they differentiate between a temporal epileptic fit and an actual epileptic fit? Because as we know in neuropsychology, we know that they look at the temporal front, they look at the temporal lobe, they look at temporal lobe epilepsy to evidence that this is not a divine intervention or deliverance or miracles or whatever. It's just a trauma response. It's trauma response, and it's a way of your body reacting to the trauma of the hyper religious environment and setting. I've spoken about how the religious setting exasperates mental health and psychosis because they are constantly in trance-like, mind-altered states. They are constantly fasting. Remember, it will be exasperated. So now people are starved, not sleeping. They're praying excessive amounts of times, locking themselves away in settings where they're getting hallucinations, delusions, thinking that they hear from God. I mean, my cult leader claims that he was locked away in a room, and then a spirit jumped out and entered him and said, "From today you can teach." That sounds like religious psychosis. So again, when they're getting these words of knowledge, prophecies, prophetically speaking, the Lord has said, the Lord showed me, when you start hearing all of that, mentally unwell. All right. So I've been looking at, we're just on the last part now, but I had to end the live because I got an important conversation, an important call. So what I just want to go through is solid sources that we can cite or we can refer to validate and strengthen our arguments, because a lot of fake Christian influencers has been running around in these streets saying that people are throwing around religious psychosis and we don't know what we're talking about. So according to the National Institute of Mental Health, they look at the core symptoms and mechanisms of psychosis and schizophrenia. They look at the religious or spiritual problem category that comes under the diagnostics chart when looking at assessing and diagnosing mental health. We've discussed that religious psychosis is not a mental health condition, so you don't need a medical health professional to diagnose or assess, okay? They are symptoms that are evidenced in people as a result of hyper religious environments. So it will have religious tones to the psychosis. It may be brief. They may have psychosis for 3 days whilst they're at a camp where they have higher level exposure to indoctrination, mind altered states, trance-like states, sleep deprived, etc. It exasperates it, and then they might go into brief phases of psychosis during that time, okay? Just like people can have the temporal lobe epileptic fits, which they call manifestation or deliverance. That's when they're all shaken. That's when they're, doing up all of that, falling out under the power of God, all of that, all right? Then we've got peer-reviewed articles and reviews on religious delusions, and clinicians define them and how they differ from culturally shared beliefs. Then we've got the systematic reviews that have been done, looking at sleep deprivation that can progress to hallucinations and delusions. And this is useful when explaining the effects of all-night vigils, revivals, when they take us away to these camps, conferences, whatever, as huge risk factors for people going into religious psychosis, okay? Then we've got the cross-cultural psychiatric. Then we've got the cross-cultural psychiatric. Oh God. Then we've got the cross-cultural psychiatry. Oh God, guys, I'm so tired. Then we've got the cross-cultural psychiatry review on disassociation, trance, and psychosis, helpful for possession and deliverance contexts. So to help us understand that this isn't, like what you can see behind me here on TikTok, this isn't deliverance or whatever. When we look at psychiatry, we can see that disassociation and trance like psychosis is in fact what they label as deliverance. And they label these things as this because they just don't have the education. For lack of knowledge our people perish. So what we've got is people falling out and mogs looking like idiots. I was looking at a documentary where a family unalived their son because they had him trapped in the house. He had he was actually in like psychosis, and instead of just taking this guy to the hospital, they had this guy thinged up in the yard. Do you know what I mean? He unalived, fighting for his life. What a horrible way. And they had people coming from the church cult to come and pray for him. Guys, it's sad. So the delusional thinking behind this, the way that they view and see mental health as demons. The parents didn't even get sent down for that. Can you imagine? It's so sad, guys. So in more extreme cases, there can be absolutely detrimental, devastating impacts to communities, families, people around them. What is the difference between spiritual psychosis and demons? Demons don't exist. Demons don't exist. How about that? You shape your own reality, but from well, they exist in your reality, Victoria, because you probably came from a hyper religious background with the same. Do you come from a hyper religious background where you were exposed to this stuff through your parents? Do you have a mum that's like, the devil is a liar at any smallest convenience? Have you come from that kind of background, my love? Because if you've been exposed to that background before stepping into one of these church cults, then it would be exasperated. All right, my love. And Victoria, I just think you're a bit too indoctrinated for me to break it down, because if you don't understand it from this context, my love, then you're just indoctrinated, unfortunately. All right. And then we've also got the International Cultic Studies Association on undue influence and cultic environments. We've then got neurology literature linking temporal lobe processes to hyper-religiosity for medical differentials, often spiritualized by groups. Okay. So again, what we've got here is we've got the I see you've got a bit triggered from being from the hyper religious home, probably with the dad that's ignored your mum the whole time and treated her like a doormat. Bye, girl. Go and get some therapy for the childhood trauma, because I know a lot of kids like Victoria find themselves in these hyper religious environments because of their parents, unfortunately. And a lot of them are neglected, so feel the need for attention, like what she was just doing there. But I can't be your mother, unfortunately. So I'm just going to quickly go into what is religious or spiritual psychosis for people that are joining or have just. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to try and do this in the next 10 minutes because I'm going out for like a late lunch / early dinner. So psychosis equals the loss of reality testing. It shows up as delusions, hallucinations, paranoia, or disorganized thoughts. So when you're seeing them talking like this, and Jesus saved my life, that's the disorganized thoughts, okay? When the context is religious, God, demons, prophecy, that's called religious psychosis. So it's when we hear people speaking in tongues, or they're saying the devils are chasing me, the witch from the church, and it's when it goes into that type of rhetoric. That's when we know they're in psychosis. Not all faith is psychosis, and this is evidenced in the DSM-5. This is the diagnostic chart that they use to diagnose mental health. They even created a special category called religious or spiritual problem for normal struggles such as doubt, grief, or deconstruction. So psychosis is different. It's rigid, it's idiosyncratic and life impairing. So idiosyncratic is when it basically means idiocracy. So they will believe to at a fault. They will say jump, they will say how high. It's authoritarian structure, it's authoritarian leadership. They're in a self-sealing system. Do you get it? It's rigid, it's life impairing. So it isolates them from family, from friends that they've had all their lives. I spoke to you about that, the survivor who was involved in, I think it was like a 2-month fast, and she went from like a size 18 to a 10. It was drastic. She still has low iron deficiency to this day. and other issues because of that fast. So it's life altering. Look at me, the mental health that I've got, the trauma, the disability, the way that the body keeps the score, the way the trauma gets trapped and stored up in the body. Yeah. Okay. And then we're going to move on to how cults trigger it. Okay, so how these church cults trigger it, these hyper religious environments, how they exasperate it is through sleep deprivation, from all night vigils. So they get hallucinations. They think they're hearing and seeing from God because their mog is calling it deliverance, manifestations, a holy night. But really, people are doing our temporal lobe epilepsy. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? People are hallucinating, including the mog. All right, trance states and chanting, disassociation, vision. So also it's like a DRUG for them. So after a camp, they're like on this high. It's like they're all excited and they've come back and they're on fire for God, and it lasts for about 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And then it wears off and then they're back to depression. Mystical manipulation. Leaders interpret your mind for you. So leaders control their mind, and that's why when they're talking to you, it's almost like they're telling you who you are. They're telling you what you think. They're telling you need to be saved. They don't see what you're doing in the background. They don't see what you're doing behind closed doors. Do you know what I mean? God could hear you more than even them, but they've got in their heads because they're in the psychotic bubble with the mog. So they believe that they've got some divine, prophet that's been given special sacred science knowledge from God, whatever. So they're delusional, like in psychosis, active psychosis. That's why I can't talk to them, because they trigger me. Induced delusion, so they're absolutely delulu. Members adopt the leader's paranoia, grandiosity, and delusional mindsets, because the cult leaders are absolutely delulu, malignant narcissists, and unwell. Okay, and then they just got a bag of kids running after them that don't know nothing about nothing. They bet if I was to ask Victoria, who was on here, what's 9 times 21? Okay, that's a bit hard. What's 9 times 7? They can't tell you. Do you understand what I'm saying? But here they are thinking that they can teach people something, and it's all wrapped in hyper religiosity. So there's no common sense. Do you get it? There's no common sense. You haven't even passed your GCSE, but they're out here thinking that they've got this divine knowledge and whatever because they've been in the church for 1 year, and they got a mog or a prophet or whatever. Guys, it's absolute insanity. All right, so red flags in church cult contexts is, here we go: voices, visions, giving commands, beliefs stay rigid even after failed prophecies. Everything is about the cult leader. Everything is about the cult leader. It's all about them. It's like being in their world. It's their self-sealing system. Life falling apart. So they get money, ending up broke. Result of this, because they're just getting rinsed out by the cult. They're 24 hours a day rinsing themselves out, doing different things, going and picking up ministers. It never stops. Hey, oh, what did they do, girl? Everyone must accept the leader's personal revelation. So if you don't believe the leader's personal revelation, you don't believe his ideologies, then you're the devil, you're Satan, you're a witch, it's a lot of uneducation, it's indoctrination, it's a dictatorship, it's tyrannical. Jesus Christ was not like that. They try and fit Christ into their wicked, dark works, but Christ was too pure and too holy and too kind and too lovely. I just can't see Christ in these spaces. Thank God for, the characteristics of Christ and his love and kindness, because that's something that you can't fake. And isn't it brilliant that the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind? And the second, which is the greatest onto that, is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Thank God that it's about self-love and loving God, because that is the key. That is the way out. You've been worshipping a man, you've been listening to a man, you've been indoctrinated. So when you come out, you've got to develop a personal relationship with God, and you've got to find yourself again. All right. And this is the last bit, guys. No, I'm going to go through temporal lobe. No, I've been through that already. I'm going to finish off this last bit, and then I'm going to go so I can go get ready. And you will have me back later. All right. I'll check the DM, Shakira. I'll check the DM. Thank you, my love. All right. So bottom line, healthy faith allows doubt and metaphor and questioning and authenticity and individuality. Religious psychosis means reality breaks down, and the church environment actively fuels it. So these church cult environments, they are the fuel, because they need the ego candy, they need the supply. The mogs are liars. They're all kids. They're all children in there. They don't know nothing about. They're still living at home. They're not even paying rent. Survivors aren't bitter. they're describing a documented mental state and trauma. Yeah. So I hope that this quick little live, it's been about 15 minutes. I hope that it's helped. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask me in the chat now. I want to say, just upon reflection, that I feel really free. I feel like a heavy weight has been released off my shoulders, because I feel like I've done my big one, and I've put some information, knowledge and resource out there to validate survivors. All right, so when you lot are seeing them religious psychosis and it's triggered, just go to my video chair. We've got a very good resource now that you can look at and you can listen to, and it just makes them look like idiots. Do you get what I'm saying? Because one thing my mum never raised was an idiot. And unfortunately, a lot of the women they never raised no idiot. But when they come into the cult, the pastor have to make them for idiots so they can thief their money. And they can tell them where to go and where not to go. And they can control their life. That's what they want to do. You understand? So anyway, guys, I'm going to go because they've probably been reporting it up there. And I need to go and eat. I'm hungry. I love y'all. I'll be back later. I hope it's helped. Guys, go and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's Leah Lauder 777. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, please subscribe. Unless you're a little hater. You might be a cultural. And you can get the live that I did. There's a longer one. There's about 2 hours worth of content on YouTube. And I will be putting out some content later when I edit it. So love y'all. I'm going to go to TikTok. I'll be back later. Bye. YouTube, I'm going to go. And I'll be back later. Bye. Instagram, thank you, Shakira, baby.